Somewhere in a highly secured facility in Los Angeles, 7 people hold actual physical keys. If they were to turn them at the exact same time, they could break the cryptographic backbone of the web, potentially rendering every server and website on Earth unreachable. And you have absolutely no idea who they are. Right now, 5 billion people are connected to the internet. They are running businesses, operating hospitals, flying aircraft, and managing the supply chains that feed nations. Every single one of those actions depends on a global addressing system, a master directory for every device and server on the planet. This directory, which routes every digital request made by every human being, is controlled by a single non-profit organization based in Los Angeles. It was never elected. It was never ratified by an international treaty. It was incorporated on a single afternoon in 1998, and in the 3 decades since, it has assumed authority over the addressing system that holds the modern world together. Its name is ICANN, and this is how one organization ended up owning the keys to the internet, and why the world has almost no mechanism to take them back. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to a university parking lot in Los Angeles in 1969. A graduate student named Jon Postel is sitting at a terminal connected to ARPANET, the precursor to the internet, the Department of Defense research network with a grand total of 4 nodes. The entire network fits in a room, the user base fits in a conference hall, and someone has to keep track of which machine is which, a simple list of names and numbers managed as a side task. Jon Postel volunteered. He became, unofficially but concretely, the man who kept the address book of the internet. For the next 3 decades, as the internet grew to 4 billion users, Postel kept running his list from a university office funded by the US Department of Defense. Postel's informal address book became the invisible spine of a network connecting billions of people. The trust-based architecture of a small research community was now the foundation of global society, and it relied entirely on a single human bottleneck. By the mid-1990s, the internet had gone commercial. The dot-com boom was generating billions of dollars in investment, and investors wanted legal structures, governance frameworks, and enforceable rules. The Clinton administration was being pressured from every direction. Tech companies wanted a predictable system, foreign governments wanted representation, and the US Congress was starting to realize it had been sitting on the most valuable piece of unregulated infrastructure in history. In 1998, the administration published the Green Paper, declaring that the internet had outgrown its informal management. A new organization was needed. It would be private, not a government agency, operating under California law. On September 30, 1998, ICANN was incorporated. 2 weeks later, Jon Postel died of heart failure. He never got to see what his life's work became. When you type a web address into your browser, your device does not know where that website lives. It submits a request to the domain name system, the DNS. Think of the DNS as the internet's phone book. It translates the human-readable name you typed into a numerical IP address that machines can understand, then routes your request to the right server. Without the DNS, the internet as you know it stops. Every website goes dark. Every email stops delivering. Every app that connects to a server goes silent. At the very top of this system, above every country's national domain registry and every private DNS operator, there is the root zone, a single file maintained by ICANN that tells the entire internet how to read every domain name that exists. ICANN controls what goes in that file. If ICANN decides a country's extension does not belong in the root zone, every website in that nation disappears. ICANN has the final word on the namespace, and therefore on what the internet is. 4 times a year, a group of security experts gather in one of 2 facilities, one in El Segundo, California, the other in Culpeper, Virginia. Both are secured by biometric systems, access cards, fingerprint scanners, and retina readers. The outer layer of security resembles a federal prism. The inner layer resembles a bank vault. Inside that vault is a hardware security module storing the most important cryptographic key on Earth. This is the root zone key signing key, the KSK. Every 3 months, that key must be used to sign a bundle of subordinate keys, which then cascade through the domain name system to verify that every address lookup is authentic. If this signing fails, the cryptographic chain of trust breaks down. Attackers could redirect any web address to anywhere they wanted. Your bank's website could point to a criminal server. Your hospital systems could route through an attacker's infrastructure. To prevent this, ICANN maintains a system of 14 crypto officers, trusted volunteers from the internet community. They are not government officials. They are engineers entrusted with physical smart cards that, together, can unlock the vault containing the master key. The ceremony itself is a nuclear launch protocol. Participants pass through multiple security checkpoints, are photographed at each stage, and are watched by independent auditors while the whole process is live-streamed to the public. This ceremony was designed to be transparent, precisely because the concentration of power is so extreme. ICANN knew that handing one organization the keys to the global internet security would invite accusations of monopoly. They called it radical transparency. But transparency is not accountability. Watching a ceremony does not grant the public any power to elect operators or check ICANN's authority in between these public events. What ICANN has actually done with this authority over the past 3 decades is where the story gets deeply uncomfortable. In 2012, ICANN launched what it called the new GTLD program. For the first time in the internet's history, the small set of top-level domains that had defined the web since the beginning, .com, .net, .org, .edu, would be opened up. Any company, any community, or any organization could now apply to operate its own top-level domain. Applications opened for .bank, .london, .apple, and .amazon, expanding the internet's address space from a handful of familiar endings to potentially thousands of custom domains. While the rhetoric focused on democratization, the actual entry fee was $185,000 per application. This exorbitant premium acted as a cover charge for the digital public square, ensuring that only the most well-capitalized entities could participate in the expansion. ICANN received 1,930 applications for these new custom domains. Total fees from that single round exceeded $350 million, capital flowing directly into a nonprofit entrusted with internet governance. When companies fought over the same domain, ICANN held private auctions, collecting an additional $240 million. By 2016, the nonprofit managing the domain name system for the public interest had collected hundreds of millions of dollars from corporations to grant them access to a system built with public funds and given to ICANN for free. These one-time application fees were only the beginning of ICANN's ongoing financial leverage. ICANN controls the contracts with every major domain registry, including VeriSign. VeriSign operates the .com registry, the most valuable real estate on Earth, under a contract that includes price increase provisions and renews repeatedly without public tender. With roughly 170 million .com domains in existence, VeriSign collects a registry fee on every single one, and ICANN collects a fee from VeriSign. This compounding fee structure ensures a permanent stream of revenue derived from the internet's most vital, structurally protected infrastructure. The financial stakes are high, but the legal framework of this power is even deeper. Since 1998, a Memorandum of Understanding with the U.S. Department of Commerce kept ICANN technically accountable to the United States government. In 2016, the U.S. ended that contract. Civil liberties organizations and foreign governments celebrated the move as the final step in internet freedom and the end of American control over the DNS. This termination removed the last shred of sovereign accountability, leaving the global domain system in the hands of a body answerable to no single government on Earth. ICANN now operates as a private corporate entity under California nonprofit law. Its board of directors is selected through a process ICANN designed, and its internal accountability mechanisms are self-policed. Review panels tasked with overseeing the organization have described their own internal compliance procedures as a rubber stamp. Of 18 formal accountability challenges filed against ICANN since its founding, only 3 have ever succeeded, effectively granting the organization total legal immunity. Nations like France, China, Russia and Brazil have repeatedly called for internet governance to be moved to the United Nations to establish democratic legitimacy. They have proposed the International Telecommunication Union as an alternative, intergovernmental governing body. ICANN and the American technology industry resist these attempts, arguing that intergovernmental control would enable authoritarian censorship. Leveraging the legitimate fear of state censorship ensures that private control by an unelected nonprofit remains the permanent default state of the web. In January 1998, 2 months before ICANN was incorporated, the early internet's physical reality was far more chaotic. Jon Postel conducted a unilateral experiment by emailing 8 of the 12 operators of the internet's regional root name servers. Without government approval or a formal process, he instructed them to reconfigure their servers. He told them to reroute their traffic through his own organization, ICANN, instead of the established network solutions. They complied. In a single afternoon, one person redirected a significant portion of global root traffic based on the trust his colleagues had in him. This event revealed that the deepest layer of internet infrastructure was built on personal relationships rather than sovereign law. The White House intervened within days. Presidential advisor Ira Magaziner warned Postel that he would never work on the internet again, forcing him to back down. This intervention proved a fundamental law of digital power. Whoever controls the root controls the internet. The question of who should hold this singular, immense power, governments, corporations, or technical communities, remains deliberately unanswered. So why hasn't anyone fixed this yet? The people who benefit most from the current system have the most influence over how it changes. ICANN's governance structure, the multi-stakeholder model, sounds democratic. In practice, it means that the organizations with the most resources, the most lawyers, and the most time to spend in ICANN working groups are the organizations that shape policy. Large American technology companies, major domain registrars, well-funded intellectual property interests. This chart shows the scale of the imbalance. These few corporate stakeholders represent a tiny sliver of influence compared to this massive bar representing 5 billion users who depend on this infrastructure. These organizations are not malicious, but they are not representative of the global population. Authoritarian governments have proposed an alternative, moving internet control to the United Nations. China has championed governance frameworks that would change how information is accessed globally. Russia supports frameworks allowing national governments to build checkpoints and toll roads directly into the DNS. Several Gulf states have joined this push toward networks controlled by individual nations. The result would be a balkanized internet, where national governments control what is said and seen. The open architecture that allowed the web to scale would be dismantled. ICANN maintains a technically unified global internet. This prevents the web from splintering into authoritarian silos, which is why its monopoly is tolerated. However, this stability comes through a single private organization with limited accountability. ICANN funds its operations through fees extracted from the domain name system, a global asset it was originally given for free. The organization maintains an elaborate security theater of vaults, biometric systems, and live-streamed key ceremonies. But the cryptographic signatures that secure the global DNS depend on one person typing the letter Y on a keyboard. This technically vital keystroke is a reminder that the system rests on human decisions that are not subject to public oversight. The researchers who built the intranet believed information should flow freely, without essential authority. They built it on trust, without a business plan. Eventually, the network became too valuable to be left to idealists. ICANN was designed for stability, but stable systems have a tendency to serve the people already inside them. 5 billion users were told the system was managed on their behalf by technical experts. They were never given a seat at the table. For 30 years, Jon Postel kept the internet's address book in a university office. He did it because he believed the internet belonged to everyone who used it. We should consider why this shared global infrastructure was ever allowed to have a private owner. Like this, if that question made you uncomfortable, that discomfort is the beginning of something important.